This is why I'm telling you it's very important to learn how the business makes money because you
Yeah.
become a powerful entity of the product, and the product is the machine, and the machine is the thing that makes money. So we have power here. Hey everybody, this is Eve Eden.
And I'm Brian Crowley. Welcome to UX Murder Mystery. So today, Eve, we're going to be talking about TurboTax, and you're going to be telling us about the ROI of design.
Yep. We're going to connect those two in our our time together, and hopefully you can pick up a few gems that you can take to work tomorrow and really start to maybe even start discussions around how UX can really impact the bottom line of your wherever you work.
Yeah, so today, what we're going to be talking about is the free file. It was actually free for about 100 million people qualified, and the company that was involved in this was supposed to keep it alive. They wrote one line of code, a robots.txt file, to tell the internet that it didn't exist, and then quietly pulled the plug on the function. The product that died was a free product. The product that killed it is one that's very, very popular. We already mentioned it, TurboTax. And you who are listening to this will probably open it next April. Um, and the murder weapon, in a way, is the thing that we try to talk about all the time, which is trying to make companies take serious the ROI of design. So,
Yes.
Eve, for anyone who had missed your talk, what do you mean by what does ROI of design mean?
Honestly, it's kind of, like anything, trying to get you to pay attention to what it is that UX can really almost uncover and provide value within your company. So the ROI really is, just a business acronym that is return on investment. So anyone in sales, marketing, anyone on the executive team, a, a CFO, they would all know that term, and then connecting it to design, which is pretty much what we do, which is focus on user experience and how platforms, behave. Um, we kind of connect those two ideas and kind of capture attention. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a catchy headline. It sounds good, but really it's so that you can really take home some tools that you can bring to work, like I said, that could help you deliver on a strategic way of approaching what we do for the business.
I want to say that I like the way you're framing that because oftentimes, do you find oftentimes that some, I mean, you and I have probably both experienced the stakeholders in the room or the folks that we've worked with where they refer to design activities or design things that we do within design as squishy or as fluffy or whatever, where they don't find them, they don't feel like they see tangible outcomes from our activities.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's what I want to do is I just want I've taken personal responsibility in learning the business language and the business model. And so really one major question could be is how does your business make money? And if you're a
Mhm.
UX person and you don't know how your business makes money, that's a big problem. That's a big problem because what you do for the products that you either are researching or you're improving should always ladder up to how it is that they are operating financially. You When you care about these things, you really do get the CEO, the CFO, the COO, right? The operations people. Like, you capture their attention, and that matters because they are thinking about the business from an income perspective, and you should too. And sometimes you could, like, vouch for the end user when you know the business, even if it's something like a dark pattern, right? So that's what I'm talking about. It's not always like, "Oh, we're capitalists, and I have no problem with capitalism," but when we think about what it is and how they're making money. And if it is a dark pattern, how do you help them at like our previous episodes? How do you help them out of lawsuits? How do you help legal figure out, that hey, you do need accessibility or captions or, thinking about color or font sizes so that you include a broader demographic. Anyone on the business side that hears you speak like that, you have their complete and full attention.
What level do you think that there's some designers that are probably going to be listening to this, and some designers may be skeptical of that notion of, or some of them may even feel like I'm focused on the design aspect and they don't want, and their brains are not quite there to focus on the aspect of it. What level do you think is right? What level is it? Junior level, beginner level, senior level, or is it all levels that should start to like understand the core premise of the business?
Yeah, I think, yeah, getting back to how does the business make money? I
Yeah.
think no matter where if you're an intern, you should know that answer. Why do you work there?
Hmm.
Right? And I'm not talking about designers right now. I'm just talking about someone who works at a company. I mean, so they hired you because you can contribute to that company in a beneficial way.
Yeah.
So to me, that's just, again, personal responsibility of you being a good employee for the business, right? So I think any level, you should know some things. And when you know those things, there is power in understanding how a business operates, because then you could really have great conversations over, someone, at lunch, or if you bump into like the CEO, right? Like, it's not, there's always something there, and the more you know, it's just like a better conversation, more full, and, yeah, just someone that it appears and does care about the company. So I think those are things that just matter in general as an
Yeah.
employee. Yeah.
That it's so funny you say that because years and years ago, when I worked as a graphic designer, I
Yeah.
worked at a company where I was doing like a bunch of what were called art corrections. And the art corrections at the time were from the whim of an individual who was then giving me these art corrections. I remember someone pointing out that's taking so much time for this
Mm,
individual to be just continuously on their own and on their whim based on like what their taste is, continuously requesting art corrections. I think sometimes we forget how time is money, and if you're spending
yeah.
so much more time, and I would say at that time I certainly did not connect those dots like I
Right.
probably should have, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, do you remember that one, book, because I graduated with a degree in graphic design too, where it really kind of showed you, like, how do you invoice? How do you price
Oh
out
yeah,
your, do
the
you remember
graphic
that book?
arts guild book. Yeah, the big,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's like a tall and skinny book,
yeah. It's a very
and
well designed.
it was beautiful. Love that book. I wish I still had it. I don't know where, somebody must have borrowed it, but it was one of those books where, opening it up, I I we did not talk about this in school.
No, no,
I don't get that. Why don't we have a business course, in
yeah,
art school? That just makes sense.
I agree. Um, so let's talk about TurboTax. Let's talk about what TurboTax did.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So there was a free option in TurboTax, basically. Um, who is it for?
Right, so from my understanding, it looks like this would be considered a TurboTax has had an option had an option where if you earned under $34,000, you could qualify to file your federal taxes, income taxes. If And then there were about, a handful of states that you did not have to pay to file state taxes. So um, that was kind of the gotcha. I don't know if people knew, like, hey, the free filing was only federal, right? It wasn't like that apparent. But so there were these like fees in addition to the free filing. So usually it was considered for low earners. And simple returns. Simple returns in their terminology was things where you didn't have stocks.
Yeah,
I don't know if crypto was a thing, or yeah, it was. So having
yeah,
crypto, having like rent, if you owned, again, you're a low earner, you owned like homes and you were a landlord, right? And so there was these other, or if you were a contractor, that could have been a potential. So if you were a contractor, like a 1099,
yeah.
that would not necessarily be considered under those simple terms of filing federal taxes.
Below 34, I think is in the poverty level, right? I mean, or we're at least getting to the poverty level, right? If you have not even low earner, it's barely livable income.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before. You've looked it up. I've seen it before where I think I was looking at, just small businesses in the US. You were looking at,
Yeah,
just earners in general. I think the average was 48,000 if I remember what you
yeah,
quoted in one
yep,
of our
yep,
previous episodes. Yeah, so that's 48,000 is a average 50% of people either make under that and 50 make over that, which is
yeah.
absolutely unbelievable.
And if you're at 34 or below, you're definitely you're in where we would call the poverty zone.
Yes, I think poverty, if I remember correctly, I don't have this off the top of my head, but 20,000 or around 20,000 may qualify you for benefits,
Hmm.
um, like government benefits.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's considered something like a new way of describing poverty, if that's very low poverty, but I think 34 is, it's getting close.
You're pretty close, yeah. So so it was a free product that 100 million people qualified for. It ended up dead. Can you walk me through the funnel? What the funnel did to the people who were eligible for it?
Yeah, so I think what was happening is Intuit ran a free option through the IRS called Free File Program or Freedom Edition. I think Intuit called it Freedom Edition. And that was for the earners of 34,000 or under, and military. So if you
Okay.
were military, you kind of got in there too. Um, what was happening is there was a separate TurboTax free edition marketed for simple returns. And so that was also kind of like a kind of source of confusion because of Freedom Edition and then TurboTax free edition. And so it was just coupled that way. So I think what was happening is there was a upgrade option that was provided as well. And it was kind of in the middle of the process of filing your taxes. So from I think completion to the paywall is where things kind of got, I guess to me, it's like shady. This is like, again, dark UX patterns,
Yeah.
not being transparent. And I don't know. It wasn't right. And I'm sure there was UX people designing this program. And I probably would have a feeling they would have also objected to this because what they were doing is it was like a free version, but they wanted you to pay to convert to the paid version.
And when they were wanting you to convert to the paid version, they were hiding, if I'm correct from the ProPublica article, they were hiding the original free version and they were using the robots.txt file to hide it. Can you explain to folks who might not understand what that means and how they did that?
Yeah, so I think what was happening is you may have heard this information from like a friend or, word of mouth. Usually that's kind of what happens. That's how things actually get, trend or, gain popularity. And so I believe what was happening is people would just go to Google
Hmm.
and search some sort of TurboTax free or tax file taxes free, right? Like you kind of get somewhere around that, you know, you know, like search, and like what I understood from the article too is they were hiding the actual page, this landing page, from people within the Google search. And so it was something that was exposed that there was the free door was hidden.
So, and we were talking about how did Google allow this to happen too? Like, how is it that Google, when we think about TurboTax and Google, like if we did this for our show, if we did something and we decided to hide it on one of our websites, we'd get dinged. I mean, I think we would get dinged or we would get attacked by Google. Like it seems like we would get in trouble by Google. So why do you think TurboTax didn't get dinged by Google?
Yeah, so I think people that were eligible for this IRS free program that was searching Google, like I said, that free tax filing or TurboTax free,
Hmm.
were often directed to the TurboTax or there was a commercial out there that said free edition too. And so I think the technical issue was like some kind of just simple instructions that was placed on the website to tell search engines basically not to index, should not index that page. So when investigators found that Intuit had configured the website so that search engines were instructed not to index this, IRS free filing landing page, as a result, it was a page that still existed. Anyone with a direct URL could still access it, but Google and other search engines would not show the page in the results because they were told not to crawl. Meanwhile, TurboTax commercials were still kind of highly visible within the results. So those paid ads were still showing up.
Yeah.
So it became almost like I think this broader investigation in 2022 where Intuit agreed to pay God, these companies are disgusting. Um I can't believe this. Intuit agreed to pay $141 million in a settlement to all 50 states related to allegations that consumers were misled into paying for services that should have been free for many of them. Now, Intuit did not admit wrongdoing as part of the settlement, though, so
Yeah.
they definitely have an ego there.
We should pop up. There's a great graph on ProPublica that we should pop up here that shows when they launched the free file back in uh, 2003 and how popular it became. And then when they launched their free edition that you were just referring to, and then you can just kind of see the decline and how it trailed off. Um, the number of people that were filing, which is
Now,
pretty.
I'm gonna tell you a little story. So
Yeah,
I'm not gonna expose the company I worked for, but I, as a UX designer,
yeah,
was asked to hide a fee when you would add, another service or something else. I don't, again, don't want to expose the company, but it would add a fee for every kind of thing you would add to the um, membership amount.
Yeah.
It was in the fine print, you'd have to dig for it, but instead, I just put it within the description of buying the service. So you buy the service, it's this much a month, but if you add these other services, it's $5 additional. So every time you add another thing, it's another $5. They wanted me to take that off. They're like, "Oh, we don't need to say that." What? So, when do you find out? When you buy the service, you get the monthly fee,
And you get
and then
the
the
hidden.
number of things you would add, which, again, can't really divulge on the details, but most times you would probably need to add, and so then the fee would be a different price because of the additions.
Were you able to successfully push back on that or no?
Yes, you know how?
Yeah.
Data. This is what happened. This is why I'm telling you it's very important to learn how the business makes money because you
Yeah.
become a powerful entity of the product, and the product is the machine, and the machine is the thing that makes money. So we have power here. What
Yeah.
ended up happening is because I was looking at the data, uh, I started to see people filing complaints on our feedback tool that said, "Hey, you didn't tell me like doing this would increase the amount of the monthly membership costs per month, not just one
Wow.
$5 fee. It was per
Yeah.
month." And so they're like, "Oh yeah, just put, let's just put that back on there." So I think it took 2 months, but as the complaints started coming in, again, data backed design decisions. This is a great book called Articulating Design Decisions is
Tom
something that you
Gruber.
should
Yeah.
definitely, yes, definitely put that on your,
Great
you
book.
know, great books to read
Yeah.
because the way you articulate is crucial to evidence-backed
Mhm.
decisions, data-backed decision, again, design decisions. And, from our own intuition, we know exposing something like this is better off because the more people know up front, the more they feel comfortable using your services instead of feeling duped at the end when they get the invoice.
It's so funny that you say that because it triggered a thought in me of like, and could be another episode of like the sins of us as young junior designers. Uh,
Mhm.
I remember similarly working at a very tiny web agency many, many years ago and being asked, we were doing some, whomever was in charge of it was asking me to do, it was some kind of weird, scammy kind of car ad thing, which I don't fully remember what it was. And I vaguely knew one of my good friends worked at one of the competitor places that was also looking at that we were looking at for reference for the site.
Yeah.
And I'm not even kidding, Eve. I thought it was very funny. Was as we're working and trying to put together this site for a client to look like this other site, I text my buddy, and he tells me, "Oh, we're looking at that site." So both of these websites were looking at each other to like
Like,
create.
"Oh, they just did that. Oh, they just did that," and you
Uh-huh.
guys are just
They were
basically, like,
basically just doing
chicken and
an
egg.
Ouroboros of bad website design.
Oh god, that's so embarrassing.
Yeah. So then Eve, getting back into TurboTax a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, After they do the robots, then they just kind of left it altogether. Why did they do that?
So, yeah, just to kind of even go back, so,
Yeah.
just making sure about, like, the UX signaling. So I wanna, like, hone in on this because this is really important. Um, in the presentation, what I did is I put together a little graph. And the graph basically says what UX language confuses the C suite.
Yeah.
And in the first box, It's things like what we always talk about between each other: improve usability,
Hmm.
enhance experience, make it intuitive.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I and others who are listening, who are in the UX field, know what this means. But from a business language, this is not something our partners within the company would know.
No.
They would use words like revenue growth, cost reduction, risk mitigation, operation efficiency. And so just by picking up that language and using those words
Mm,
when you are speaking to people outside of our industry, you will have more credibility and you may go further in producing work that'll be more like viable for the company. That to me is a real world example that you should be using. Like today's Friday. So you should be using that on Monday. Um, that would help you kind of further along what it is that you're asking
mm,
for because it's being understood. And so how do you show your work? So from a UX signal, it's, let's say the example would be um, in the TurboTax example, you complete the onboarding. And so what's the business impact? That would be retention or revenue. What would be the metric is would they come back, let's say the following year, right? And so it would be, let's say, module completion, you are retaining people, and the metric would be a 365-day retention, right? Or
mm.
if you're selling other products, they buy other products from you. And so by showing like this is what we talk about in UX, this is the impact on the business, and this is the metric that we are using to identify what's happening. That's how you really start to translate some of our UX language into business language.
It's so interesting. This is such an interesting conversation, and I think it's so important. I think that this is so important because I think there's two sides of communication that have been completely fumbled, where both the UX folks not there's UX folks not speaking business lingo, but I think the other end of it too, that we also need to fight against and work on, is dispelling the UX myths that business folks have picked up or grabbed or have had people that maybe shouldn't have been communicating to them spread to them. I used to hear, I don't know about you, but I used to hear from some stakeholders that would start going on about 3 clicks, that only everything should only take 3 clicks, which is a nonsense thing. And there were several other like myths that they would just kind of hear and like absorb and then start to believe. And I think we also need to work on dispelling and getting rid of a lot of those.
Yeah, I think it doesn't make sense because it depends on the company. Right,
Yeah.
this thing about, like, you copying the other car competitor and the car competitor actually copying your design, it doesn't that is so immature from a business perspective. It's like, do you not understand the business or the audience? Or, who it is that, you're, marketing to? Those are, I think, things that, from an individual, you can pick up on and really become almost like the head of the pack at your company because what you're doing is you're just making sense of things. You know, when you sit in a room and you think to yourself, why are we in this meeting?
Hmm.
Right. And then people joke around, this could have been an email.
Hmm.
I think in most cases, when we are sitting in corporate rooms, nobody wants to be the person to say that, either why are we doing this? Is this necessary? Right? It's like nobody wants to take personal responsibility to like advocate for not having the meeting or asking why we are making this decision.
Oh, yeah.
Instead, what we do is we get these very awful performance reviews on you're being too bossy, you're telling people what to do, da da da. And really, the individual is probably just gives, cares, and they're just being given feedback on, you know, stop doing that.
Oh, that's so fun.
This to me is
Yeah.
directly pointed to immaturity. Immaturity from either you're you don't know the business, you're, it's just upcoming in in a company, or you just kind of just don't care, like in general. And I just feel like those it's in my opinion, if you um, if you relate to any of these, I would continue to push and find the people in your company that they can, Steve Jobs sometimes talks about A players. And what an A player really means in his book is just someone that gives a shit,
Yeah.
right? Someone that's like cares, understands, asks questions, ask why, pushes back, not because you're being difficult or you're being bossy, but it's like, no, you probably don't know either. And so why are we having this theater of pretending we know what we're talking about and having a meeting that doesn't make sense? People are rolling their eyes, or not even um, these meetings are expensive. Everyone's getting paid,
Oh my
to sit on these meetings. So why are we having them? So I think those are things like that passion comes up, and if you are not the CEO and act like that, like people look at that and are like, you can level up, where you work, um, stuff want to work on. And you could work on more passionate things, I think, at the job, or just even care or make a difference while you're there for a couple of years, or maybe, for a decade. Who knows?
You know, a friend of mine years ago who was a product manager, we were in a meeting and he said exactly that. I'd never thought of it before. He was like, we were in this big meeting with like 25 people for an hour. There were no action items, nothing came out of it. It was all just like a bunch of like nonsense. And we left the meeting and he was like, that was like a $3 million meeting for no reason. That did nothing. And like you kind of like think about like, oh yeah, like how many salaries were in that meeting and nothing got
Yes.
done and there were no action items out of it. And it was just like what was the point of these meet some of if you don't know what the point of the meeting is, and that's uh just an opportunity for someone to talk. It's not great.
Yeah. Or just even ask what's the goal for the meeting?
Right.
What are we supposed to get out of it by the end of the meeting? I mean, generally, if I'm going to be in a meeting, and because I am let's say a consultant or worker, I can really start things off in that way. And I think that you, let's say being a W-2 employee, can do the same thing. I mean, this is kind of low stakes.
Yeah.
I think people will generally appreciate it. They'll probably ping you and say, "Thank you for doing that. I didn't know why we were having this meeting." Right? So I think those are things that not only show that you have, some care about the business, but that maybe, you could get some leverage where it's like this person really can help us make some better decisions here for the product.
So Eve, you travel around telling companies to tie design to dollars to win a seat at the table. Uh, do you think in some ways could that hand them a murder weapon?
Ooh, that's a good one. So, um, just to be provocative,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Say more.
Okay. And so I think when you are tying the ROI, of the company back to UX metrics, I think what you're doing here um, is actually giving you power. So our ROI could be looked at as neutral power.
Yeah.
And what I what the deck that I put together and, presented on teaches teams to prove designs value, which I know that kind of gets under people's skin. I've said that to managers, my own managers, and we don't need to do that. Yes, we do, because look what's happening, right? Um, you, Complete product teams have been dismantled.
Yeah.
And when you prove design's value, it does not teach them who, like necessarily whose value. What you're doing is you're helping like expose things that may have not necessarily felt more abstract. Um, and you're tying things back to the product. Because what's happening is products used to be physical in nature. They've moved digital over the, let's say, the past 15, 20 years, and those digital products are making companies money. Now we were now now us we were now positioned as like this kind of middle person on being between the business and layout. Yeah, like
Mhm.
creating layouts and creating easier like ways of behaving with a computer. Now, we didn't sign up for that, but that's where we are. And so I think what it does is it helps the business um, understand the behavior, but they could use it just like any good, evil villain. When they understand the problem, they can use it to their own benefit. So that's why I say yes, it can be taken in a way that defeats the purpose of serving the people that are using your product um, through, ways of dark UX patterns like manipulation and coercion, and things like hiding landing pages that would, help people get free services. So yes, there is that, um, malicious intent behind understanding a problem or understanding like the design aspect of things.
When I'm getting so many flashbacks now from my days like working in e-commerce, and when we worked in e-commerce, one of the activities that we did, I've done this in other companies too, is creating the villain products, where you create the worst version of your product, where you create the product that um, says it's free, but then it hides the free features, or it charges you a bunch of hidden fees, and it steals your account numbers and sends them overseas, right? We actually like game that out so that we can then say, okay, well, this is what we don't want to happen in this product. But the other thing I think of too, with the you saying the murder weapon, is like there are products that sometimes companies develop inside the house that probably should be killed and probably shouldn't make it into production. And I think companies sometimes they go into that sunk cost fallacy where they just keep putting money behind it to build it, and they can't stop the train once the train gets going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think, with companies in general, is they're also experimenting. I
Yeah.
know that's like a weird word to use because I don't think I've ever heard anyone say, let's experiment. But you are at times experimenting with, the interface, the landing page, the document, the language, the content, the service, because you're just forecasting like what you think might happen if you put something out there. This is why you may be asked to copy your competitors like you did, Brian, because it's kind of a fail safe. Like,
Yeah.
oh, somebody else is doing it, and obviously it's working, but you don't know. You just see it online. So this is like we are experimenting with companies and their digital products.
Eve, what's the actual line, do you think, between persuasion and deception?
Like in my personal life. Um, persuasion and deception. Well, I think it's intent, right? When you think about the intention behind deception, there is a malicious intent, something you're trying to mask or hide away so that maybe you can benefit from in like not in a way that's not plain or logical or transparent. Where I think, um, the other way around is you're just being honest, and you're being clear and you're being direct. And honestly, I think that is generally more appreciative. Here's why. Let's say you're a company, let's say like TurboTax, and you're just kind of like, and I've seen this with companies where they're like, here, just upfront, transparent. There's no nonsense. We're not hiding anything from you.
Mhm.
And it's just plain and you're like, "Okay." And you kinda look at the price and you're like, "Alright, so I'll keep this as one option." And then you look at another company, it's kind of ambiguous. And
Mhm.
you look at another company, it's kind of ambiguous, or you see a gotcha. Most likely, what you will do, if you're pretty much, like, emotionally intelligent, you will say, "Well, this company is, like, hiding their stuff, and I had to dig to find out that this actual service is the same price as this service, but they just told me that up front. I'm gonna go with this company, right? So I think those types of ways of just being clear and easy and direct maybe towards your benefit because of what we're currently seeing in the muck of the internets.
So, when the FTC and 50 state AGs show up, that's not a design review. What does it cost businesses to get the ROI design right, but they do it in an evil way?
Well, I mean, 50 state plus DC settlement of 141 million dollars. That's one. How about YouTube and Meta on trial for
Yeah.
$380 million dollars for their addictive design patterns, right?
Roblox too. We've talked about Roblox.
How much was that? I can't even remember the
I don't
settlement there or
don't
if
remember.
there
There
was
could be
one.
multiple lawsuits still
Yeah,
going. Tesla
right.
too. Tesla's getting sued up the wazoo.
Right? We talked about like the design patterns of things just looking cool, at the risk of death. I mean,
Grok.
like that's
Grok is
just
now.
financials, right? You're talking about life and death too, with like
Yes.
medical industry and the car industry. And then obviously like with things like the IRS, thank goodness there's like a government that has like the courage and the bravery to take these businesses down to court. Because it's just this private equity thing. Can I just get on a soapbox?
Please.
I was just in line. There was like a Greek yogurt place that just opened up near my house. And so I was in line with my friend, and we just struck up a conversation with someone that was on their phone reading with fine, fine print, reading something. And so my friend's super curious. That's why we're friends. She asks him, "What are you reading?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm reading this, documentation for." He's a dentist,
Uh-huh.
and it's a contract to go into business with a, like, dental practice.
Mhm.
But what you don't know is, again, with the same thing, this copy and paste, is the dental practice is actually owned by private equity companies
Yeah.
that are turning over dentist office into a business where they will kind of just like find the most expensive procedures at the lowest costs of crowns and root canals or whatever people need in order to make the most amount of money so that their books look like, hey, we profited 33% and sell it to the highest bidder next. Right. So we just had this discussion with this random person who's a dentist, going to dental school, was like considering. I asked him, why don't you buy your own practice? It's like, oh, that's getting harder and harder these days.
Yeah.
Why? Why
Yeah,
is it hard to open up a small business in America? Private equity
100%.
companies are buying up all these great small businesses where dentists and physicians and HVAC companies,
Yeah,
they're getting into that too.
yeah,
Plumber, I don't know if they're doing it with plumbing companies, but these everyday hardworking folks, blue collar, obviously like the white collar as well, you know, taking away our freedom so that we constantly become, slaves to the W-2, the employee, like being a employee of a company. And you see this in hospitals, gross. It's really just something has to be like, we have to put a stop to this because you're almost taking away our freedom on autonomy of making our own money. It's just getting harder because they're taking it away. Similar to like BlackRock and them buying up like these properties where landlords, would have a couple rental
it's
properties, and that's what they did for their
it's
life.
become insane. I mean, I can tell you that we've got we've got Sotheby's has sent us a thing saying they'd buy our house. We've gotten several other like I know myself and other people in our neighborhood all getting these like little cards in the mail from these random firms, all types of firms, not just BlackRock. There's also what's the other? There's the name of the other one that's really huge that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but it's like a giant. It's also a giant hedge fund, a giant private equity. But they're all of them are like sending out like notices to homes to try to buy people's homes up too, and like and saying, oh, well, buy a cash offer or whatever. And it's like this like it's insane. I don't fully understand like I don't understand just to I know that just to I don't understand what the end game is. I don't understand why what their goal is. Um so but
Yeah.
yeah, all the I think that I've heard that almost all of like they are buying up like as many medical practices as possible.
Yes. And insurance companies are making it harder to cover um, private practices,
Yeah,
private physician practices.
yeah.
Why? Why, as an insurance company, is the physician going to stiff the insurance company? What's going on? So, anyway, just to kind of backtrack.
Yeah.
So, this is like what's ruining, like, kind of like cool products. They're being bought out, right? You create a product, then the goal is Shark Tank. Someone's gonna, give you some money, you pay them a percentage, and then eventually it just gets bought out by venture capital.
By the way, I would just encourage people that instead because my we used to watch Shark Tank, and if you actually like read up on all of the people that are prominently featured on Shark Tank,
Yeah,
uh, what you're being sold on Shark Tank about these folks and how successful they are is not as true as you would think. Uh, Especially if you go look into like their histories and what they did. They might have successfully made a lot of money, but the ways in which they did it, I would highly suggest people like look that up and do their own reading on it. Um, so Eve, switching gears, if you're a designer who wants a seat at the table but doesn't want to end up on this show, what's the practice? And by the way, we mean when we say end up on the show, not end up on the show to be interviewed. We mean end up one of the people who's created a dead product that has died in a bad way.
what's the question? Sorry, Brian.
The question is how do what is it that you want if you want the seat but you don't want to end up with a dead product? What's the play?
Yeah, I think, just be good, just be really good at what you do. Right? Everyone knows and can see when people are passionate, they're gritty, they have like perseverance, they're a little relentless, a little, just when you have a like what we do, there is a passion behind it. I think it's because we are at the end, we're helping people, right? Creating products that may be easier to run payroll. Maybe it's easier to buy health insurance. Maybe it's, whatever. Name your the goal or the vision of your company. Awesome. So I think it's and then just standing up for what is right and speaking, I think, in a clear and concise way. This is where, again, the Articulating Design Decisions, I think, is a great book for you to read and start to speak the language, right, of your business partners. So, who are your business partners? Well, if you work for corporate, most likely it's product. Those are your BFFs. Engineering, um, generally sales and marketing, because sales is trying to sell the feature you're building, and marketing is trying to market the feature you're building. So, do you see how everything is really tangled up? And so, by knowing the language of how, like, the salesperson is speaking and why you would push back, or when you're talking a product, why a deadline needs to shift in order for you to create this feature properly for your end user. Again, it's because of just concise, clear language. Understand what ROI means, what customer or client acquisition is. Understand what retention means. How your company makes money. All of this really are almost like tools in your tool belt for um, like ways that you can convince people to do the right things from like the end user perspective. Right? I think that's the goal is just, understand who you're working for and how they make money.
Okay, I'm gonna just make a call out to say to folks, if you are going to config, Eve and I will be there. So I don't know if this will, I think this will land before we're at config. Um, and if you can, please leave us a review on Apple Podcast. And if you can subscribe to the show if you aren't already.
Yeah, and I think leaving the review, awesome if it's positive. If you have critical feedback, please send us an email at questions@ux murdermystery.com, so that we do better as well. We'd love to hear from you guys,
Absolutely.
negative or positive.
We want the feedback, all the smoke.
Yeah,
All right. Thanks,
no
everybody.
smoke and mirrors. All right, bye guys. Like, subscribe, and follow, or become our next victim of bad UX.
UX Murder Mystery is a joint production of Eve, User Experience Design Agency, and Crowley UX, where systems meet stories. It's hosted by Brian J. Crowley and Eve Eden. Edited by Kelsey Smith. Intro animation and logo design by Brian J. Crowley. The music is by Nicholas Lee. You can follow us at UX Murder Mystery. You can email us at questions@uxmurdermystery.com. UX Murder Mystery is a copyright 2025, Brian J. Crowley and Eve Eden. Thanks for listening.